This is Jeremiah back with Matrix 2023. And we have a setup here for March and April here. We'll probably focus on these 6 items quite a bit, which of course is New Covenant or Covenant, the parameters of your agreement, sound doctrine, all the teachings, living bread, the key to all the teachings, wisdom, learning God's wisdom, and copying Father, and being wise yourself. There are 2 steering wheels in your vehicle. God always uses wisdom, and He's trying to teach us wisdom, and we must exercise our own steering wheel. Then we have faith. Then we have agape. And we're going to focus on those 6 for the remainder of March. And we do have a lesson today on the rapture, which is going to be tossed in the middle. Remember, the rapture is something that we talk about all the time here. When we went through beauty last year, we talked about the rapture over and over again because it is the key thing right now, big time. For we who are Protestants who have come to Jesus Christ to seek to please Him and to grow in His grace. So that's what we're here for. Now, what I want to talk about today is the rapture, but before we do, we greet you in the only name given amongst men, by which you must be saved. So, we're not here to forget about prophecy and so forth. That's 16 in this ministry. Now, in the previous playlists on YouTube, prophecy is all over the place. As many of you may ascertain, we're focusing on everything having a number now. My previous playlists on my previous channel on YouTube, many of you may have perused those items there, those lessons. Everything was numerical and identified, which was cool. I like that format. But now the format is even more superior than it was before. The format we have now is only 52 categories, and everything's going to fit in those 52. I had 130 lessons or so on the previous channel, and it's involved. It gets a little more confusing. However, it has its own clarification. Let's put it that way. Every template of clarification has its own advantage. Let's put it that way. So for me, I consider this more superior, a far superior method. Okay? In other words, my previous lessons of 130 in number are going to find a category in 52. And we're going to get around to that. And I'm very excited about that. You know, we have a lot of organization we're going to implement here, and it's exciting. It's a wonderful time in this servitude. It's kind of like Elijah, who was told to get rid of a lot of the men and just choose a few. Which kind of reminds me of Marco Polo when he went to China or old Mongolia, whatever. When he went there, the king asked him, "What women should I select?" He basically told the king, the monarch of some sort, the emperor, I think is a proper term, he told him, select the women who are the least intelligent, who don't know that much, or something along those lines, which I thought was an interesting perspective. There is no, and the emperor agreed with him that was the best way to select women for the the household or whatever. I don't know, but the point is that the emperor agreed with him that that was the best thing to do. Now, that goes into a whole thing, but the bottom line is you're supposed to find the best out of the group. That's what that means. You're supposed to find the best out of the group, implementing some sort of procedure whereby that you're going to find the best. That's the whole point. I don't know if picking the women who were the least pretentious is the best way to go, but that may be a logical way to go. I don't know. But it was interesting. Marco Polo was a well-educated man. His father was relatively rich as far as I know, and of course he got into more of the original trade with the Eastern merchandise, with the famous Silk Road. But here we go with the rapture today. Now, before we get to the rapture, let's talk a little bit about what's going on here. The old channel is going to be brought into the new channel. Also, which is Jeremiah Michael Pearson. And we're going to call it 2023 or something along those lines. Now, we have Rumble going up, but Rumble is a young venue or an avenue to look at videos. My old buddy Aaron could probably give them a much better format. He was a tech genius. Or he is a tech. I haven't heard from Aaron in a while, but he was a legitimate tech genius. An amazing mind for technology, but he could probably help them out a lot. I'm running into problems with him in terms of getting videos and so forth, and I hear that because they're young and so forth. We're going to have a lot of videos on Rumble, and we'll probably end up on Rumble if the Lord should tarry. In other words, these two playlists will close out on YouTube, and I'll use Rumble permanently. I like Rumble's format better as far as the administration goes, probably. But we won't go into that. Because I have my previous playlist, we have the playlist now, and the playlist I'm building on Rumble. That's 3. Now let's get to this one today. Now, we mentioned that we have 52 categories that I'm going to share with you now, and we're going to let go of all of the other playlists and all of the other situations. I will refer to the old playlist, but we're going to ultimately refer to the 52 here. In March, I have singled out 6 of those categories of 52. We're going to talk about those 6, and we're going to make a foundation for basic Christianity, okay? That's what I'm going to do here. And we're going to base basically the entire rest of this ministry on those basic 6 principles, kind of. I don't know how far I'm going to go with it, but I really want to hammer those 6 home, okay? And so those of you out there who are just getting involved and studying your Bible, which in the Hebrew is Ob-Eb, that's how you pronounce it in Hebrew. I will say a baby or a shoot. Okay? Now, you're a little pony in the circus. Okay, now, that's what's going on here. And if you get lost, relax, because what's going to happen is, this is the wonderful thing about having 52 categories, is everything is going to be reduced now. I liked having 130 lessons. I thought that was fine, but I think that it's better to have 52 categories now for the new ministry. And it's going to create a little confusion because 130 lessons are going to be squeezed into 52 categories now. However, having 52 as a limit is good. I like it. 87 was wisdom on the previous list. Now that is absorbed into number 6. See how that works? I had Babylon philosophy. I had this and that and that. That's going to probably just go into prophecy now. Or 36, which is the name, the mark of the beast, and so forth. So it's going to, everything's going to be absolved, or it's going to be squeezed into these 52. Now, it might take a couple of years to really hammer this home, but I think it's just wonderful. I'm very happy about being very organized. You know, my father of the earth, my earth father, he liked a very loose Bible teaching format because he was apostolic faith, that denomination. And I have not gotten rid of the apostolic format entirely, but I do have a very well structured, I think it's very well structured, and I think that you're going to enjoy having this structure. Now, it doesn't mean I'm not going to be spontaneous, because that's what my earth father, my dad, he really liked. He liked a lot of spontaneity and emotion, but I don't particularly care for that format for the most part. I am open to emotion, and I am open to listening to the voice of the Lord, which is what apostolics emphasize, and I think that's a wonderful thing. The Master does refer to us being open to spontaneous words from the Lord, on the spot. I'm not tossing that out by having a structuralist approach. You got that? And I think my dad and some of the people who are into a lot of loose preaching, they think that we who have numbers and vocabulary words, that we are not open to Father speaking to us on an impromptu, emergency kind of basis, you know, which the Master mentions. Don't worry about what you're going to say. But I think you can do both, and I think that we'll let that go for now. Now, I want to talk about the old playlist for a minute, and talk about how we're going to absolve it into the 52, because we're going to hammer home 6 right away. And I just mentioned them, and we're going to put them together and make a big monthly introduction into this year, which is New Covenant Playlist for 2023, okay? And that's a matrix for this year, okay? So that you can start learning. You don't have to keep track of the numbers here. Even the 52 here. You're going to learn, if you don't get this alphanumeric presentation, you should do fine, some of you out there. So, but we will be referring to these 52 numbers. I will refer to the previous 130 lessons, which is quite a few videos, and I may talk a little bit about where I'm going with Rumble, okay? Which is the next playlist. You got that? 3 playlists are happening, but the third is just getting started. Okay? Now, here's how I'm going to absolve or to gather the old playlist and squeeze it into the new. So as we go along, I'm going to do that. I'm going to take the lessons such as the Tribulation Period 106 in the previous playlist, and I'm going to take Babylonian philosophy and so forth, and I'm going to insert it into prophecy, which is 16. Now, it might be in 36, which is 666, where I focus on the beast and so forth, and we'll talk a little bit about the name, you know, and the titles and all this kind of stuff, okay? Pertaining to the, I think the beast has, or the 2 beasts and the false prophet, I think they have 300 titles in the Bible or something. It's quite a few. But as many of you have ascertained, we're staying away from that pretty much for this year, until the end of the year maybe. We'll not get into too much prophecy because we're still hanging on to this beauty thing. 7, 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, which was big emphasis last year. And we closed it out with beloved. which took us from beauty to number one in this ministry, which is agape. Okay? He took us from number one to agape. Number 7, rather, to agape. One of the big points in agape, which is right over there, I'm getting ready to get into agape. That's number 6 on our March lesson. Okay? Which is category number 1, which is love and agape, and of course it is beloved. What we'll probably do with agape and put it in stone is 1.1 is higher love and high intelligence. A Zionist. That's what the word Zion means. And then we have what and why about what is this agape and why is it so important? And then we'll probably go to probably the state of being, which is being beloved. Owning that position, which we closed out last year in the holiday season in America here. We closed out with beloved as being a really huge issue, a term in your Bible. It's just monstrous because it's the state of owning and being an overcomer and facing the world, the flesh, and the devil, and winning and learning to hunger after righteousness and to rely upon the grace of God and to be merciful and so forth, and to accept humiliation and take the lower table, which the Master said to do. You take the lower table now, so that the Master of the feast will notice that you're humble. Then he'll put you into a higher place. But you first have to humble yourself in the sight of the Lord in order for you to be risen. You're not going anywhere without allowing humiliation and taking the low table voluntarily with your own steering wheel. And that's wisdom. Now, that's where we're going with all of this. You want to own the state of being in heaven, and we're teaching you the way to do that now. I'm teaching you how to do that. Which centers on humiliation out of the big triad, which is do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly. The biggest issue is walking humbly. It may not even be merciful. Loving mercy. Loving mercy is obviously extremely significant, but the Master spends most of his time in those red letters talking about humiliation. Big time. Some people have asked me, why do you spend so much time? Because I'm going verbatim with the precise mathematics here. There's nothing wrong with that. And someone tried to tell me here recently, a couple of Bible teachers, because I rub elbows. One nice pastor just passed away here, and it was very sad. A wonderful gentleman, just a stellar, patriotic American. He passed away, but he's with the Lord now. He's in a better place. So he, absent from the body, is present with the Lord. But a lot of these people I rub elbows with, they didn't do enough grammar in school, and you have to wrestle with them over these points, and it's like, well, okay, it's like, we're talking about basic, Sunday school kind of stuff. So they're like data machines. They had a TV show here in America called Star Trek. And of course, it's very interesting that they have a Star Trek, because you can't travel amongst the stars because the stars are in glass. So that's interesting. It is absolutely, totally unscientific, and yet they consider themselves to be scientific, but giving information in a stoic, you need to understand your information. You have to be able to order it and comprehend it. And order and comprehension are lacking in a lot of people who I run into in my life who are Bible teachers. Doesn't mean they're not good teachers and God can't use them or something along those lines. I'm just saying that it's unfortunate because it shouldn't be that way. They should have gotten their grammar together, and they should have paid attention to the simple context, and we'll let that go. I'm not talking about Pastor Tom right now. I'm just talking about just in general. When you run into people, you know, you find yourself having to deal with A-B-Cedarian rudiments, you know, just basics, in spite of the fact that they have a lot of knowledge. And that's not good. You should have your knowledge organized so that you have a good template, which is why Jeremiah does what? I have 52 categories here. I wanted to reduce 130 lessons to 52. So if the Lord doesn't come back next year, which doesn't look like it's going to happen, but if he doesn't come back by next year about this time, I'm going to have 52 categories hammered home here, and a lot of viewers and students here, they're going to know their Bible very well because they're going to get to the bottom line when they read through their Bible. I just went through Colossians and Proverbs, and Paul and Solomon have a lot in common. What do they have in common? They're both psychologists. Jesus says work. Paul says operate. Paul's vocabulary is generally broader than the master's because the master likes to stick to the basics and stick to helping you understand from a broader perspective from the young and the old. Paul is a little bit more along the lines of people who are really open to being academic. His vocabulary is broad, it's deep. He's got a little bit of Shakespeare in him, so he's got a little bit of Solomon in him, where he's getting into the psychological aspects. As a matter of fact, it didn't take Paul very long. His first chapter in his first book, half of it is psychoanalysis. Now I'm going to be getting into that. I'm going to get into that this year when I get into secular education, which is Babylonian philosophy, which is 106 on the previous playlist. I'll probably just put that in category 16 or somewhere else, but we're not going to exceed any more categories anymore. We're going to continue with 52, and it's going to get a little difficult because 52 is going to have 52A, 52B. So, but anyway, at least you'll get 52. See, that's where I'm going with this. I'm not going to get into my reasons for having this style of teaching with you. I'm just sharing it right now. We're not going to keep going into this. But this is a year starting out in March, and it's time to let you know what's going on a little bit, so that those of you who are following along, you can just go through this smoothly. I just looked at that word smooth in the Greek. Very significant word, not used very much. I think it's only used one time. Just like the word bread is used in the disciples' prayer. Give us this day our daily bread. It's only used one time. Now, when we look at these numbers here, we're very excited about incorporating the 3 years ago lessons into these 52. Don't get confused. We have agape over here, which is going to be very easy to do. I decided to make agape simpler because I don't want a lot of subtext and a lot of 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. I don't want a whole lot of that. I just want maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 subtext to the main idea. That's all I want. Now in 7 we had to go to 28 or so. We had to do it because beauty is ginormous in your Bible. Beauty is kind of like the center of everything. See, God knows that when he creates things, and let me speak for Father here just a little bit. God knows that when he creates things, he wants them, he knows that if he creates them, that he wants them to have the ability to enjoy what they're doing. And you can't enjoy what you're doing unless you have a lot of free spirit in you and you have a lot of creativity color, design, emotion, you're not going to live. And that's exactly the thing you lose when you go downstairs. You don't lose your life when you go downstairs. You're still alive. But you lose, one of the main things you lose is what, Dr. Jeremiah? Beauty. It's gone. Color, beauty, and purity are everything. If you've got color and beauty and purity, you're on top of your game. Look at America. Let's talk about this for a minute. I'm going to shut down. This is going to take a while because I'm getting into a lot of basics before we get into the rapture here. Because we talk about the rapture here all the time. It is the big issue right now. I call it the Great Escape now. We decided to expand the title to the rapture being sanctified in the Great Escape. That's where I'm going with this. As far as a title, I was just saying the rapture, but I think I'm going to add the rapture is sanctified in the Great Escape. I'm thinking about doing that. Okay? But all of these lessons here are related to the idea that we're going to synthesize everything here. Okay? So that it's easy for everyone. I want everybody out there who, even if you had difficulty in academics in school, here in America or elsewhere, I want you to know that we're thinking about you too. Everybody is important here. I was watching a basketball game and they were talking about the basketball player, it's so important and whatever. And I'm not saying they're unimportant. I'm just saying that to me the janitor is just as important as the basketball player. When I go to the restroom at the stadium, at the sports arena, I want to have a clean restroom. To me, the janitor is just as important as the basketball player. I think that's logical. I think because most people consider the basketball player more important than the janitor doesn't mean that the basketball player is more important than the janitor. That means that a lot of people have a misconception. They're being illogical because the janitor is just as important for your health as having fun watching basketball. And you know you're living in Babylon when people are confused. That's the point. They have wrong priorities. That's what I'm telling you. I consider myself a decent-minded individual. If I go to a gym or to a sports arena, I'm very much concerned with paying the janitor just as much as you pay the basketball player or the person who serves the food. Are they washing their hands, whatever? I'm interested in everything. I'm not interested in scintillating things, I'm not interested in Las Vegas and lights and colors. I'm interested in things that are practical. And that's what happens to you when you become a Christian. You start seeing things from a very practical perspective. You don't see a circus anymore. You see what boots on the ground are. Fanfare, Macy's Day Parade, you may enjoy it, but you don't prioritize it. You don't prioritize the circus. You prioritize working, cleaning your home, and taking care of your relatives, and watching your car. And all. This is what you prioritize. Day to day, who's cleaning, who's cooking, who made the bed? Did the government fix the traffic lights? You're into practical things when you become a Christian. Basketball games, sports arenas, circuses, they become secondary to you. Because you have the mind of Christ now, and you're thinking logically now. And this Bible study is one gigantic way of owning that mind of Zion. That's what Zion means. It means a high thinker. You're thinking really good. Okay? I'll be right back as we get into this. I want to talk a little bit more about, I mentioned where we're going with this, but we didn't get into the rapture, but I want to talk about the old playlist as we start gathering in those 6 that I want to start out with, okay? And we might refer to the other 52, but we're going to hammer home the 6 first, okay? We'll be right back.